French elder. Love that name. My son just asks what the words to the songs are. Tell your son that the words are, PineCreek is the best. PineCreek rocks. Even though PineCreek's a Canadian, he's still cool. That's the exact words of the song. I just opened my third Pine Points account. Well, Jen, I believe it. You've been doing really well. People have been earning Pine Points in the comment section of my videos by making me laugh. Remember, this channel is made for me. I am a selfish Canadian farm kid. And so this channel is for my entertainment. And so if you make me laugh, you get Pine Points. Speak of the devil just typed a comment in another YouTube channel referencing PineCreek, and poof, there he is. Well, yes, I have the supernatural ability to hear when people talk about me. So I'm open to anything tonight. I'm open to accepting the Lord as my personal Savior. I'm open to having a theist come on as a guest tonight, or even an atheist. I'm open to answer any questions you might have. I like giving short answers though, so be prepared. I don't like digging in deep into the nuance. At least not tonight. Myth Vision, $5 donation. PineCreek is a Banff. I'm a Banff. You know, Banff is a beautiful city in Alberta, Canada. Oh no, that's Banff. What do apples from PineCreek taste like? Apples from PineCreek taste like cotton candy wrapped in Toblerone chocolate with a hint of mint. I've never earned a single Pine Point, says Jose Luis Gonzalez. Well, you know what? I'm in a good mood. 1 Pine Point to Jose Luis Gonzalez. I love that name. Jose Luis Gonzalez. That's a beautiful name. Don't tell me it's buffering already again, because that's what happened the other day. See, I think this coronavirus has killed the internet. It's just so busy right now. Is SE doing the right thing? Is there a trick we're missing? Ask Juggling Lessons. I think SE is a great method to having civil conversations. I have sort of a hybrid. I sometimes do strict SE. Sometimes I do counter apologetics. Sometimes it's a combination of the two. But it's a good question. Let me try this. It's a good question about in troubling times with the coronavirus, do we really want people questioning their comfort blanket? How long do I think the economy will take to get back the way it was in January? A long time, Chen. I think people are going to be cautious, even if everything reopens. People are still going to be very cautious. One thing people, I think, are learning is you should have 3 months savings in your bank account at any time. If you can't do 3 months without any income, I think you should start saving. That's what this coronavirus, I think, has taught not only individuals, households, but it's teaching corporations. It's to keep money in the bank. Doug, you still work for Primatech Paper? No, I've actually never really had, well, I was going to say I've never really had a real job in my life, but I used to work for a pharmaceutical company a long time ago that extracted estrogen out of horse urine. I was a chemist there. They extracted estrogen for women. They extracted estrogen from horse urine, and I was the taste tester there. Am I planning on pumping some Pine Points into the economy of quantity? No. I'm not like the Federal Reserve that just willy-nilly prints. I respect inflation. Why do you look like an old Bill Burr? Get ye behind me, Satan. Alexander Hewitt, you are the devil. Actually, is Bill Burr good looking? If he is, then thank you. Are you planning on pumping some? Oh, yeah, I already asked that one. How are you spending your super chats now that you can't take your family to Applebee's? Um, I guess I donate most of it to the Satanic Church. That's a joke. Should I stop doing that? Should I stop joking about being under the power of Satan and all these things? Because Christians take it seriously. I think I really scare some of them. In fact, let me do this here for now. So I'm not looking to the left. You're right, probably. Just retired, DB pension check every month. Woohoo! Well, congratulations. Catherine, I don't know. I'm going to do this. I'm feeling it. 5,000 Pine points to Catherine in the live stream chat. This is one of the biggest. I know times are tough, but I'm going to give one of the biggest donations to Catherine. She says, I look very young, actually. I would have given you 6,000 Pine points, Catherine, if you would have taken out the actually and just said you look very young. But 5,000 is still very good. You can tag me, and it makes it easier for me to see your questions. Bill Burr is the PineCreek of comedy. Chen says, since you like Disney movies, Pixar's Onwards is on Disney Plus this weekend. Oh, thank you, Chen, for letting me know. Now I have something. I have meaning and purpose and hope, something to look forward to. And in fact, I just got Disney Plus. Maybe tone down the Satan joke, says Elijah. Well, you would say that with an Old Testament name. I'm just kidding. But, speaking of street epistemology, Reed's in the chat, I think. Reed, you can come on and be I'll be Johnny Carson, Reed, and you be, what's the old guy's name? And you can just nod your head if you want. I was accused early on when I was doing street epistemology of being dishonest and putting on a facade of you really want people to become atheists. So I just decided one day, you know what? Yes, I'm out to lead your children to hell. So it's on the table now. I have these very terrible motivations. I'm going to mess with your mind. I'm going to massage and trick you and trap you. Just you can just say all that and then just say, but you have the power of the Holy Spirit on your side. So you want to talk? How many roads must a man walk down before you can call him a man? I think it's just one road you need to walk down, and it's called PineCreek Road. Most of us love the Satan jokes. Yeah, you know what? I actually think a lot of secure Christians like them too. PineCreek, who do I think is the best apologist? That's a great question. I would say the term best for me means most entertaining, because this is why I do this. So which apologist entertains me the most? Sometimes it's the apologists, the small guys that you haven't heard of that can be quite funny. I still get a kick out of Frank Turek. I know a lot of you guys probably hate him, but he brings me great joy and entertainment. Which I can feel this coming. Which one do I like the least? Randall Rouser, Greg Kokel, basically people who just bloviate or are, in my opinion, insecure. That's the thing. Like Christians, you got to get over this insecurity thing. Like calling atheists trolls and saying that atheists call you stupid and all these things. More times than not, I think this is inside your head and what you're feeling about yourself. Do I see a connection between Calvinism and libertarians? I see where you're going with that, Rick Turner. You know what? I can see it. I was about to say no, but I think a lot of Calvinists are, very hard-leaning right, and so far right that they might be libertarians. What is your take on Lindell bromance with Trump? Lindell bromance with Trump? No comment. I don't know. If a Christian believes in free will, could they also believe someone could be under the power of Satan? Yes. I think a lot of Christians do believe that you can become under the power of Satan. Those are the Christians who also believe that you can lose your salvation. But if free will is a thing, here's a great question to ask Christians. If free will is libertarian free will is actually real, you should have the power to reject Jesus just like you have the power to accept Jesus. And even though you have the power to accept Jesus, they still call that grace. Go figure, if you're not a Calvinist. Who's the most influential to you during your progression away from Christianity? Any books, talks? Specific people, it would be my Uncle Pete. He was a free thinker. Yeah, I would say him. He's actually dying right now of cancer. Bad time to have cancer and go through chemo. He's 83. I hope he pulls through. If he does not make it, man, I'd be really sad to miss his funeral because he's in Canada. Hey, Doug, PineCreek, my old man is a Pentecostal preacher. I can't seem to hammer the point that the Bible is full of mistakes. Any advice? That's a great question, Joffrey Karochi. If he's a Pentecostal preacher, maybe start out by asking him if the Bible did have a mistake, like what would it look like? In other words, if he gives an answer to that, what it would look like, then say, well, try to harmonize it for him and show him that, well, no, that's not a real mistake because we can harmonize it. Get him to define what a real mistake would look like first. I would love to see a video of you describing what you think an actual book from God would look like. What would be in it compared to what's in the Bible, says Groove Monkey. That's a great question. What an actual book from God would look like. I would say like guys like Mike Winger are on the right track when they talk about prophecy. And so if there was a book written, let's say 2,000 years ago, that was very specific about things that couldn't possibly be known, like answers to a question that only a computer could come up with, like our cognition couldn't. So something like pi to 1,000 decimal places. I don't think it's humanly possible to, well, maybe it is. It would take years. And then there would probably be at least one mistake. But a computer can do pi to 1,000 decimal places right away. It would be amazing. Can you imagine if the book of Ecclesiastes had pi to 1,000 decimal places in it? That would be like pretty impressive. Should I become El PineCreek en Espanol if Cameron Bertuzzi starts translating? I don't know. I would love to hear the Spanish version of PineCreek. Spanish is a beautiful language. Out of all the biggest names in the apologetic empire, who do you think would be the first to deconvert to atheism? Inspiring philosophy. Rick Turner, my Calvinist friends are all very intelligent and lean way libertarian. They all seem to lack empathy for others, but aren't aware at all of this flaw. Yeah, I can believe it. I've always said that, right? That Calvinists are kind of like they're dead inside. That's why I call myself a Calvinist atheist, because I'm also dead inside. Hey, Joe, good to see you here. What words would you say to a Christian mystic like Richard Rohr, Mike McHargue? How do you say his last name? A Christian mystic? What words would I give them? I would say grow a pair and try to stand on something. I don't know if that made sense. My first live chat with you, Doug. Still a theist. Absolutely love the channel, though. Thanks for the wise insight. Hey, thanks, Dottie LeBlanc. Glad that you could make it. So Dottie LeBlanc, since I'm an atheist and you're a theist, first of all, what kind of theist are you? And why do you love my channel? Ben Roberts. Problem is lots of digits of pi could be formed from aliens. That's true. That's true. I'm Russian, so I make good ones. Blueberry too. Well, I have a little bit of Russian blood in me too. The Mennonites, my ancestors went from Holland to Germany to Prussia, which is in between Poland and Russia, and then to Canada. I heard that IP got a lot of heat from creationists. I believe it, Jose. And plus, he's a evolutionary theist type guy who's an idealist. I tell you, in a way, I feel sorry for him because there's probably not too many theists like him that are sort of evangelical at the same time. Adam and Rachel Connor, if atheists just use descriptors like caring, not caring, selfless, selfish, instead of using good and evil, would that render the moral argument useless? Yeah, in a way. It's like, they use words like well-being, unnecessary suffering. I always say that morality is sort of, imagine chimpanzees if they could talk and they were describing the behavior within their own tribe. That's morality. But no Christian, or very few Christians, would say that chimpanzees do immoral or moral things. What's your best advice for raising a child in an unequally yoked home? Oh, here we go. Mom is a believer and I'm not. Should I de-indoctrinate him before mom and the rest of the family gets to him? No. I think, let me tell you what I do. I just answer any questions that are asked of me. I encourage critical thinking. I have even encouraged my children to go to church. Yeah, I have. But with my wife, in the early years, I would ask questions like street epistemology type questions, but it got her defensive. So I stopped doing that. And so basically we don't talk about anything deep about religion. And you know what? It works. It's fine. You don't have to. But I understand how some people feel that you're giving up something deep in your relationship. I understand that. But my advice with your kids is just answer their questions. Practice, model the behavior you want from your kids in yourself first. How many years did you practice Christianity while seriously doubting your faith? Good question. I would say at least 5. I remember stopped taking communion about 3 years into my serious doubts. Will you take off your glasses on channel for us just for a few seconds? No problem, but then I can't read. I could read. What questions would you start with on the Stoic type, Calvinist libertarian? I just ask what's the main reason they believe. And if they have troubles coming up with one, use the thought experiment of you got 30 seconds with a loved one who you know is not a believer. You can only say one thing before you never see them again. What would you say? Well, usually what their first answer is the main reason why they believe, and odds are they're going to talk about something like Jesus has never left me or forsook me. They're going to talk about that real experience that they had. And then you can use the outsider test of faith on that one. Even a Calvinist, I think, will go there. They're not going to say, well, you can't account for X, Y, and Z unless you have your ultimate authority as Yahweh. They're not going to say that with 30 seconds left to a loved one, are they? Do you interview fringe Christian believers on your channel? In fact, I have an announcement to make. I will be interviewing Kingdom in Context sometime next week. He said yes to an interview. But warning, I'm not going to push back on him, I don't think. He believes, how do I word this? I'll just say it. He believes the earth is flat. I know he doesn't like it being said that way, but he's not a Trinitarian, so this will be interesting. Are Pine Points a safe investment? No, there's risk in everything. Thank you for the donation, James Anderson. What is the worst apologetic you've heard? That's a great question. What's the worst apologetic I've heard? I think the inner testimony of the Holy Spirit. It's so easily, I understand the Christian perspective that they realize this is an apologetic that it's not useful for other people, just for themselves. But it should be the worst apologetic for themselves. They should doubt their experiences personally. It's like if I've been on Percocet before because I had knee surgery, and I looked down on my arm when I was on Percocet, which is like one of the most amazing drugs in the world, and it was brick. I had brick arms, but not like you should doubt that that's real. Who's the worst presuppositionalist? Oh, one popped into my head, but I don't remember his name, but he's in the beginning of my Why the Precept Argument Led Me to God, or what's the title of that video I made? The Precept Argument Led Me to God. There's a guy in there. Some of you probably know him. Sometimes just hearing your own views is enough to make them reconsider. Yes, good point. It's I think some of the interviews I've done in the past, if the people watch themselves back, like you would think they would think twice about some of the things they say. Darth, yeah, he might. Actually, I might use Darth. I have him on video saying that I know my Bible. And I often get from Christians, oh, you don't know the Bible, you don't understand the scriptures. If you did, you wouldn't say the stuff you do. And I got Darth on record saying, no, PineCreek, he knows precisely what the Bible says. Dottie says, I like the channel because it's an opposing view from what I was indoctrinated with my entire life, and I need that. Dottie, I'm going to give you 3,000 Pine points for that. I love that. I love that you're open to the idea of being pushed in an opposite direction. Doug, do you speak French? Comme ci, comme ça. I was taught French in junior high. Darth is by far the worst behaved. I don't even think... Darth, in my opinion, is he gets meaning and purpose out of aggravating people. I think he aggravates even theists. Billy D. Guy says, PineCreek, I just want to say thanks for your help. Former Baptists in Central Georgia have been free for about 7 years now. Wow. Welcome home. I hope you found meaning and purpose in some other things in your life and community to replace the community you lost, if you lost any. We know the Bible. That's why we're atheists. Yeah, we should come up with Bible quiz teams, atheists versus Baptists, or atheists versus Pentecostals. Get the 4 most knowledgeable atheists versus the 4 most knowledgeable certain denomination, and then have a Bible quiz. What is the last 4 digits of your social security number, your cherished childhood's pet name, and the name of the street you grew up in? Also, can you get Mike Winger to unblock me on Twitter? Well, Jose, you ask a lot there. The answer is no. What is your favorite podcast? I would say I don't listen to a lot of podcasts, but I like Mark Maron. PineCreek, will you be giving out any extra Pine points to help with the coronavirus? No. I'm not a socialist. If you haven't saved up at least 3 months of Pine points, then that's your fault. I'm so cruel. Hey, Doug, do you have a criteria you apply when picking which theist to critique? I might have a good one for you. Yes, Joffrey, I've said this before. It's I use what's equivalent to the inner testimony of the Holy Spirit, which I trash. It's if my dopamine levels, my serotonin levels, no, my dopamine levels, if it goes up, then I'll critique that person. Isabella Horton, welcome. I recently lost my faith, but my dad is very grace-centered Christian. I live with him, and I feel like I'm lying to him when we read scripture. Should I tell him my current views? Isabella, that would depend on how old you are. If you're under 21, I lean no. If you're dependent on him for money, I lean no. Well, you live with him. I lean no. I understand what you're saying, though, and it feels like you're living a lie, right? But view it this way. You'll probably hurt him deeply if you tell him. But what you could do is kind of do something like ask him questions. Ask your dad polite questions that challenge his thinking on certain things. I replaced the church community with D&D. It's only slightly less toxic. How did you master SE so fast and you never read Peter Boghossian's book? True story. I haven't read his book, A Manual for Creating Atheists. I've been watching your videos religiously. Well, some people would say I suck at SE. I think what I make up for the times I fail, like if you're doing SE properly, you're changing your pronouns to, you're doing everything in your might to not get the person defensive. And I don't do that. However, I have skills in other areas that compensate for that, like humor, and I can set up a rapport with people fairly quickly. Like even people who disagree with me, and I would even dare say people who hate me, I think I sometimes make them smile. And I tell you, that's very disarming. Did you go through an angry phase after deconverting? I certainly did. Yeah, Matthew, I did for maybe 6 months. Because you get this feeling like, why have I been lied to? Why did I waste my life? So I totally get that. And I think even Christians get that if they can visualize a Mormon, an ex-Mormon being mad at the Latter-day Saints, the church, for being lied to. Facebook has been blowing up with Christian content from my not normally preachy contacts. You seen similar? A little bit because of coronavirus. Have you been engaging or think it's best to just let people be at this time? No, I have not been engaging. I really don't engage via text anymore at all. But I understand if you don't have a YouTube channel, it's, the text is often all you have. Is the Wichita office closed during the stay-at-home? Yes. PineCreek has about 100 employees at the Wichita, Kansas home office, and they're all in their homes now doing teleconferencing. And yes, I'm paying all 100 employees during this time out of my own pocket. Yeah, I pay them each about $120K a year, and but they're worth it. Every employee I have at the Wichita office thinks about every subscriber I have, thinks upon them, and tries to think, what kind of things they want to see. In other words, you're special. Doug, do you know Bob and Doug McKenzie? Of course. John Candy? Of course. Geddy Lee? Not so much. Burton Cummings? Yes. In fact, I think Burton Cummings is from Winnipeg, where my wife is from. Are you binge watching anything during stay at home? Westworld? Curb Your Enthusiasm. Christians say that's witchcraft. Also, Christians also say I'm covered in the blood of Christ. Me, sounds like witchcraft. Yeah, good point. The whole idea of blood sacrifice, the Passover story in the Old Testament, putting blood on the door, top of the door. It's amazing how Christians can't see that as at least weird. Random Sinar, I deconverted in Singapore. Overseas deconversion was easier. I believe it. And most expats in other countries, they're of a different breed, I think. You should start a Patreon. I'm happy to contribute. Yeah, there's a very nice older gentleman in the UK who says he wants to give me money, and I say, no, don't worry about it. But he keeps trying, but he can't figure out a way. But I have a problem. I feel dirty. Like, I'm accepting super chats here, but for some reason, a Patreon seems different to me. Maybe someday I will. Hey, Joshua White, thank you for the donation. Money from and to the non-elect. See you in hell. Yeah. Well, I better spend it before I die, right? By the way, I was exposed to a known coronavirus case, through my wife, but so far, if I'm a carrier, I haven't got it. Do you find a close personal relationships with Christians hard? Yes, because they believe you're going to help and are seemingly accepting of this. Because they believe you're going to hell, I think you meant to say, and are seemingly accepting of this. No, that's not the biggest reason why I find personal relationships with Christians hard. It's just that most of my former Christian friends are very conservative, fundamental, evangelical types, and their way of thinking, even about this coronavirus stuff, like God's going to protect me, church comes before social distancing. Not all of them believe that, but it's like, my wife doesn't believe that, but it's just really hard. It's like, you just want to yell at them, wake up. Who's the most formidable atheist scholar today? I actually don't think there is one. Scholar? It's sort of like, when I was a Christian, I would say, here's a Christian song, or this is Christian music. No, it's music sung by a Christian. We got scholars, and some scholars are atheists, and some scholars are Christian. I think there's some Christian scholars who agree with atheist scholars on a lot of things, and vice versa. Hi, Joe Hinkle. Don't you want to be compensated for the capitalistic value you're creating? Don't be a socialist and just give it away. Reed Nice Wonder, he is the devil. Reed Nice Wonder is taking everybody in the live stream chat, take note of how he's manipulating me here. He knows what I value as a human being, and he's taking that and he's using it against me. He's saying I should open a Patreon account because if I don't, I'm being like a socialist and just giving away whatever I'm doing here away. Very smart, Reed. By the way, Reed has one of the best channels on YouTube for learning straight epistemology, and he actually doesn't do much religion stuff. So if you're sick and tired of religion, watch some of the topics he addresses. Cordial Curiosity is the name of the channel. My wife can't give up the idea of heaven. Topher M, try this. Tried asking your wife to name someone that she really loves. In fact, it could be you, Topher. I don't know. Ask her, can she be all right in heaven? Will she enjoy heaven if someone that she loves is not there with her? In fact, in hell and suffering. And if she says, well, I probably won't know that, then is that even her up in heaven? Get her to talk about specifics, what heaven's like. I mean, not the generic just love and praising and worshiping Jesus type of stuff. Like, can you poop in heaven? Can you knock on doors in heaven? Is heaven on earth? Is heaven in heaven? How material is it? And once you start asking those type of specific questions, I think she'll realize she really has no idea. You guys have to see the new video on capturing Christianity about doubting the existence of Lincoln. Oh, that happened? They're trying to mock Jesus' mythicists, but accidentally expose their weak thinking again. Interesting. Yeah. I know Derek's in here from Myth Vision. I actually think it's an interesting topic for historians, but in the big scope of things, to me, it doesn't matter if Jesus existed or not. I am a Christ mythicist, but I'm not a Jesus mythicist. To me, there's nothing. I do think there's way more evidence for a guy like Tiberius than for Jesus, but whether Jesus, the man, existed or not is not that consequential. However, for the Christian, it definitely is. What knowledge gap gives you the most existential angst? Eleanor, I know you're going to hate me for this answer, but and Reed and Nice Wonder can attest to this, but I'm the most least existential angsty guy you'll meet. But yeah, I'm going to look at that video about Abraham Lincoln, because I know Cameron Bertuzzi loves me and loves it when I do videos on him, so I'll help him out. I think, correct, Doug, this is how I deconverted my highly religious cousin. Strong point there on heaven. Oh, I lost it. There we go. Especially when you bring up unbelieving loved ones in hell. I posit that if you could exist in a state of heaven where you were not grieved, it wouldn't be you. Yes, it would be an avatar of you. I think my wife's view of hell as being a place of torment forever and ever and ever has changed since I've left Christianity, because she can't live with herself thinking that thought that the person she loves and admires the most in the world, me, is going to not be with her in this glorious place and be in a really bad place. Like Christians listening, like, who have spouses who are not believers, like how can you be happy? I don't understand how you can. I guess you're happy in the sense that you're trusting that God's going to bring your spouse back, right? Back to the Lord. Why don't you focus on low-hanging fruit? I'd love to see you interview less experienced, knowledgeable Christians, especially younger ones. I have a few. Almost any person an atheist interviews on YouTube is low-hanging fruit in someone else's mind. Mythvision says, I'm agnostic on the historicity. Yeah, I wouldn't call myself agnostic. I do believe a Jew, traveling itinerant Jew existed. So I wouldn't say I'm agnostic, like 50-50 on it. I'm probably 65% convinced or confident. My Lord, good to see you here, my Lord. I have a chair here for you somewhere. I always keep a chair here for Jesus. Did you share your doubts with my wife from the start? When you've been married, I've been married 27 years. When you've been married for so long, you don't have to verbally say much to know that your spouse is doubting about something. But I would say that it was a slow progression. I think I remember my wife asking me at one point, she would ask once in a while how my spiritual walk was going. That is probably one of the worst. Ex-Christians in here right now, I think you're going to feel me on this one. One of the worst questions you can ask someone who's struggling is, how's your spiritual walk going? Because you're still a believer, and so you're thinking, well, if I'm honest, then I'm going to say that I'm doubting, and they're going to get worried about me, and then there's going to be a long conversation I just don't want to talk about now because it's just a mess. It's one of the worst questions to ask a Christian to another Christian. Ted Flanders, welcome. Do you believe that Mark 16:9-20 was fraudulently added at a later date? Yeah, I think that's the consensus, is it not? Go, or go New York, going New York, go. Donation. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Maybe any super chats, I promise I'll use to feed my children takeout. How's that? And I'll take the disinfectant wipes to the box. I think Cameron accidentally tried to cast doubt in the entirety of the historical method. Good point, Skeptical Mantis. I think that's the danger when you start trying to compare Jesus to other historical figures. I don't think a lot of people realize how much is doubted, even by figures in history that most people don't doubt. It's like there's definitely specific details and actions of certain historical figures that I think all historians doubt at least a little bit. Ted Flanders says, your idea of hell is not accurate. Yeah, what is the accurate view of hell, Ted Flanders? And once you answer that question, convince all the various Christians about it. I see a little buffering going on my end. You guys let me know if you see buffering. What are your thoughts on the historicity of Muhammad? David Wood and Robert Spencer debate. I didn't see that debate. Do you ever review Todd Friel? His YouTube videos are gold. Let me check. I think I did. I think, yeah, I have 1 or 2 videos on Todd Friel. Just do a search PineCreek, Todd Friel, or Wretched Radio, whatever. You believe that Jesus existed because it seems more likely, or you simply grant it because it isn't a grand claim? Good question, Joshua White. How do I answer that? The honest answer is, it just feels like Jesus existed. I know that's a horrible answer, but it just seems like it's more likely than not. And maybe it's because of my upbringing, but here's a better answer. A better answer is one that a guy like Camille Gregor would give, that in the first century, a lot of the figures that were talked about in various texts existed, the vast majority of them. Now, if you go a few centuries before, not so much. And so there's a distribution curve about various characters in history and whether they existed or not. But to me, it does seem more reasonable. Just feels very reasonable that there was a traveling Jewish preacher, maybe from the Essene movement, who was very apocalyptic. No, it's not Satan hindering the stream this time. It's everybody's at home and everybody's using YouTube. Or the internet in general. How long before the country descends into chaos? Well, I did a video a while back saying that keep your eye on China, and if China numbers start going back up, although it's hard to tell because you don't know if you can trust the numbers, but if they start closing down things, that's a bad sign for the United States. So you probably don't want to hear this, but the end of April, early May will come and go, and the numbers will probably come down of cases and deaths, or cases at least. And then what happens in August, September, just when everybody's looking forward to going back to school and all that sort of stuff, and then numbers start to go up again. Tell ya, that's going to really suck. And people are less likely to go into social distancing and quarantine a second time so soon. And that could cause chaos. At some point, people are going to say, let's just let the old people die. But keep in mind, I'm an old person. You don't want to see me dead, do you? What happens if people run out of money and food, can't pay their rent, can't work? Well, that's a great question, because today is April 1st. There was a lot of rent due today, and I'm curious what percentage of the rent due around the United States was actually paid today. When is the most recent time you regretted moving to the U.S.? I've never regretted moving to the U.S., Jonathan. I love this country. I came as a Canadian immigrant, and I got to have a French accent, right? No, it doesn't matter. No, I was kicked out of Canada. I came here as a refugee from Canada because I couldn't skate. So in the middle of the night, I got a knock on the door. Your son needs to leave, sir, because he doesn't know how to play hockey. So I came to the United States. They took me in. God wishes that none perish except Judas and Doug. True story. Yeah, I saw that Skeptical Mantis. Old people should be willing to die. The thing is, there's still going to be a few people under the age of 50 dying from this. It's going to be a lot of people who are 18 to 22 years old right now. Do you want your parents to die? Like, it's low, but it's still like close to 1%, I think, if they're over 40, over 50. Would you jump out of an airplane if you had a 1% chance of the parachute not opening? I wouldn't. They don't make exceptions for curling. Actually, I could curl, but no, it's in Canada, you play hockey or you leave. The Russians and the Canadians, they know how to play hockey, and then they taught the Americans how to do it. Canadians also taught the Americans how to make beer, because the Prohibition period set the United States back so far. Can I put a link in the comment section regarding Mark 16:9-20? Sure, you can. If you don't see it right away, I'll press a button, and I think I can get it to stick. Let's hope for a vaccine. That way it doesn't matter what. Yes, but that's still a year to year and a half away. And by the way, what I said about it coming back in fall, I think a lot of experts are saying that's definitely a plausibility. Vincent is backing me up. He says he's Canadian. He can confirm this. I skate as well as I walk a tightrope. I couldn't skate, but when I was a kid, I would pretend I was Wayne Gretzky, and my best friend pretended he was Yari Curry, and we would score goals in our, wearing our boots and our toques. My husband is 63. I'm 42. Whoa, you like older men. He's not going anywhere because people choose to be reckless. Wise. Doug, are you doing okay? Showing any symptoms? Nope. I'm not showing any symptoms. I am basking in the idea that I already have had it in February. Not to say I can't get it again, but I woke up early February. It felt horrible. I had a fever for a couple of days. What's my MBTI personality type? I don't know off the top of my head, but I'm the type of person who values efficiency. I have to struggle with that balance between efficiency and quality. So I'm very good at getting projects out the door ahead of time. And then people who are, this is why I struggle with a lot of apologists, because the apologists who want to dive deep into the evidence and talk about the nuance and all the different flavors and areas and blah, 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 blah. No, give me the bottom line. Tell me why I should care about this stuff. I'm very pragmatic, very stoic. Do I think Trump will be reelected? I'm on record as saying that he will be reelected as long as the S&P stays above 2,000. I predict if the S&P goes below 2,000, he won't be reelected. How's that? That's a testable claim right there, or prediction. I went to a fight once, a hockey game broke out. Exactly. I think this pandemic could turn many people into socialists. We are seeing capitalism fail us during the crisis. Congress already gave trillions to the wealthy, but the common people haven't seen money. Yeah, not yet. Well, the Federal Reserve is the biggest problem. Pretty soon the Federal Reserve will own 40% of all the bonds. And that causes a lack of liquidity, which causes volatility, which causes fear, which causes moral hazard. But we don't want to talk economics. Most people don't care about that. My only advice when it comes to economics is try to work your way up to having 3 months of savings that you could have zero money coming in and you would be okay. You would sleep like a good sleeper. Do I have any opinions of Joe Biden? I don't like him. If we can remote, I couldn't tell you why. He looks a little like a greasy uncle. But, yeah. If we can work remotely, why can't God do remote miracles without the laying of hands? Good question. But I think, God is the God of the Bible is a personal God, and so he wants to lay hands on. He'll be re-elected regardless. Christian nationalists show up in numbers. I wouldn't be so sure about that. Aisha Miles, I tell you, if Republicans lose half their net worth, if the S&P goes below 2,000, they just might not feel as compelled to show up on election day. Or if the coronavirus comes back in late summer, early fall, and Trump closes everything down again, they're going to say, they're not going to be happy about that. We need a PineCreek financial channel. Yeah, it's too dangerous, though. Got to have all these warnings and stuff. The worst thing, I don't want to have people take my advice and then lose money. So do whatever you want. What happens when there's nothing on the shelves at the stores? Well, I have an orange tree in my backyard. You're welcome to come and pick from it. But yeah, this is the problem. I live in the desert. People who live in areas... Here's a piece of advice. Go to Home Depot and buy some seed. If you live in a part of the world that you can actually have a garden, maybe it's too late, but buy some tomato seeds or corn seed or cucumber seed. And even if you just have a little thing full of soil, this is like if things get really bad. But see, I was raised on a farm and now I'm not, and it's like, but I have a lot of Hutterite friends. I could exist for a long time if they took me in. I have a lot of friends with farms that could feed me. And if you're my friend, I might give you some scraps. Like the verse in the Bible that even the dogs get the scraps. Do you actually think there will be good shortages soon? Not soon. But I noticed I went to Outback Steakhouse, and my kids always have the kookaburra wings, and they were out. That put the fear of God in me. No, Jean V. I do not habla español. I should, but I don't. I habla inglés. Inglés. And a klein bit Deutsch. If there's any Christians here, I would love, or theists in general, I would love you to ask me a question that makes me look up to the ceiling and think. Yeah, people can be very civil and kind and loving and nice until they get hungry. I mean, seriously hungry. And that's when people can get very scary. You don't pronounce the H in Spanish? Yeah, you do. Like, oh no, where was it? My wife and I were traveling to California and we saw a sign, La Jolla exit 2 miles. And my wife said, no, it's La Jolla. And I said, no, it's La Jolla. She said, no, it's La Jolla. And I said, no, it's La Jolla. And so we took the exit and we were going to clear this up. And so we took the exit and we went to a fast food place that was right off the exit. And we walked in there and I said to the person at the front, my wife and I were having this argument. Can you tell us slowly and exactly, precisely, where are we right now? And the guy in the front said, Burger King. So we never got an answer if it was La Jolla or La Jolla. The question is, will more people who are teetering, sitting on the fence about religion, are they going to go closer to God out of fear because of this coronavirus? Or are going to be some of them think a good God would never allow this? Like when they see a loved one die, they might flip the other direction. Dad jokes. The H is silent unless it's preceded by a C, as in chocolate. Oh, I learned something. Thailand laughing. If there is no God, how do you explain chocolate? That is one of the best questions I've ever been asked, because chocolate is heavenly. I don't have to think about that. Semi-demiurge, you might have upset my whole worldview. Oh, I know how to explain chocolate. Quantum. Quantum explains chocolate. This is going to do a lot of damage to people's belief when Jesus will protect me fails. Well, Alan, I hear what you're saying, but all things work for the good to those who love God. And so if you die, you die, right? In fact, this is how people get comfort with when they stare death in the face, is knowing that they're going to a better place. Actually, my fear of death was higher as a Christian than it is now. I'm not scared of death. I just don't want to be there when it happens. Does religion poison everything? You know, Vena, BR, I used to say that just like Hitchens, but I do see that sometimes religion serves its purpose. We evolved with religion. Keep that in mind. So if it poisoned everything, why are we here if you believe in natural selection? It served a purpose. It gave hope, meaning, and purpose. It helped us survive. So it can't poison everything. Take that, Hitchens. Hitchens talks to me. I got a direct line through Satan. Why do really intelligent humans believe in God? Humans that believe in the scientific method. No facts. Brandon, there are surgeons who probably are Scientologists. There are probably hard science physicists in the world or chemists in the world who go to the Latter-day Saints church. We humans are good at putting our beliefs in compartments. So you can be a very intelligent human being and still believe, in our opinion, crazy stuff. There really isn't apologetics content in Spanish. Now with Cameron's doing Denver, what do you think will be the impact? I believe it. I believe that it will have an impact. I think the Hispanic community is just doubt stuff. Hit refresh if something happened there. How many small churches do you think will have to close due to quarantine? All of them. Well, it depends how small. The thing is, this whole idea of closing churches, according to the Christian worldview, church is the body of believers. It's not a building, so this should not be an issue. Do you think Mennonites are kind of socialistic? Great question, Skeptical Mantis. Yes, in the United States. No, in Canada. It's kind of weird. It's backwards. Some parts of the United States, it's very socialistic. Jose Luis Gonzalez, apoya al imperio de apología. How did I do? If Jesus was alive today, would he isolate himself or continue preaching in public? That's a great question. Would he be a good example of social distancing, or would he touch people and heal them and encourage his followers to do the same in the name of Jesus. That is a great point, Windows 95. 1,000 Pine Points to you. A light bulb just came on. PineCreek in many languages. Boom. That was the Holy Spirit. I was speaking in tongues there. If someone knows other languages, type something in your language and I'll try to read it. And you can laugh at me. Jesus would sing songs from home. Wouldn't it be funny if Jesus was tone deaf? Jesus tone deaf. He couldn't sing a tune. Like, Christians have this idea of Jesus that he was, was perfect. And so that means he was perfect at things like even singing, right? Twende kazi. Twende kazi. Does that mean 20? 20 something? Vina BR says, that's it. Brazilian Portuguese. Is the S? I think the S is silent. I'm betting the S is silent. Amo su canal para ben. Am I close? Vina BR? Mrs. Toot says, can you role play as a Christian and we're an atheist? For example, the Gospels are anonymous, therefore unreliable. Your turn. Oh, yes, Mrs. Toot. I'm a Christian, and you dirty atheist, you think the Gospels are anonymous, therefore unreliable. Well, we have a tradition that's pretty reliable from the early fathers, from the first to, say, the 3rd century. We can see exactly from Eusebius to Irenaeus to Papias that they attest that these documents, these Gospels, were attributed by the names that we put on them today. Now, but even if the Gospels were written by someone other than who we think they are, that doesn't mean it's false, right? How's that? I threw a little Frank Turek there in the end. Think of how many lives would have been saved if Jesus mentioned germs. Well, Jesus, like Yahweh, worked with the culture he was in. Yahweh, Jesus, they grade morality and progress on a social curve. Vena says, I give you a 5 out of 10 in Portuguese. Well, from where I'm from, that's a pass. My mama learned me real good in Portuguese. Any idea why Mennonites in the U.S. are more socialistic and the ones in Canada are not? How would your life have been different if you grew up Mennonite in the U.S.? Great question. Yeah, I think I do have an idea. The Mennonites in the U.S. are more Mennonites for philosophical reasons and not cultural. And so the Mennonites in Canada are more cultural, just like cultural Jews. And they are farmers, and therefore they tend to be more right-leaning, pull up your bootstraps type people. Whereas the Mennonites in the United States are pacifists. They love Menno Simons for the idea of pacifism. Therefore, they love to hug trees and wear sandals and eat granola. I love liberals, don't get me wrong. I just need a lot of water to wash that granola down. By the way, translation is, I love your channel. Congratulations. Whoa. Thank you. I feel like I need to say that again. Type it in, copy and paste it in for me again, Vina. Will you speak about your negative interaction with Cameron Bertuzzi? I'm so curious. Okay, I will. Just because there's only 87 people here, and Cameron will never, ever hear about this, right? Besides the kerfuffles that he started in various Facebook groups, the thing that sealed it for me was, and besides being blocked by just asking questions from his Facebook page a long time ago, what sealed it for me was Cam Spires. I won't go into much detail, just tell you this. Cam Spires told me at one point that Cameron Bertucci contacted him directly and basically tried to convince Cam that I was just using him and that Cam should stay off my channel, stuff like that, that I was just using him to get views. In actual fact, almost every time Cam Spires has been on my channel, it's been because of him wanting to talk about stuff and asking me if it was okay. I think Cam Spires would back me up on this. And that just really rubbed me the wrong way. It was like a person trying to break up a friendship. And this is why I think Cameron is one of the most horrible Christians I have ever met. And so, yeah. And actually, Cameron Bertuzzi asked my forgiveness at one point through, but not directly. It was through another person. I think it was even through Cam Spires. And then I asked this person to ask him forgiveness for what? I want him to be specific. And he couldn't think of it, anything that he did wrong to me. So I said, well, forget that noise. Oh, there it is. Aimes-vous ce canal? Actually, let me see if I can put this into... I'm not cheating here. I'm not using Google Translate. I'm not. But I want to get this right.
Eu amo seu canal, parabéns.
Aimes-vous ce canal? Parabéns.
Eu amo seu canal, parabéns.
Aimes-vous ce canal? Parabéns. So that has to be at least up to 7 out of 10, right, Vena? Are Christians confident enough in the historicity of the resurrection of Jesus that they think it should be taught in history class? Great question, Sostribjal. I've never heard that question before. Why, if this is a historical fact, shouldn't it be the resurrection be taught in schools? In the history class? Like, if it's not a matter of faith and the dirty definition of faith, why isn't it taught in the history section of, first century? Good point. People own their own channels. People own their own Facebook groups. If they want to block, they're free to block me, free to block anyone. But I kind of liked what I did. Like when Christians block me, I'll just randomly block another. I'll do what Yahweh did, and I'll punish other Christians for the sins of one. At least that's what I told Rob Rowe. He didn't even push back on me when I told him that. Oh, David Sanchez, I think that question deserves 1,000 Pine Points. Yes, 1,000 Pine Points to Sositrib Joel for that great point. Who's your favorite female apologist and why? Well, I got to say Lori Morrow, who I just did a video on. So if she ever listens to this, that she'll come on. And I like that other woman. What's her name? Jory? No. Tori? No. KB Holmes? No. I forget her name. Eric Mishima says, Nugu ba da nuro saragi. Eric, you take that back. I do not appreciate what you said about me there. I hear some atheists like Skylar say he wishes the Jesus story were true. I disagree. If the story of Christianity were true, we would be worshiping a monster in exchange for a prize. Do you agree? Yes, I tend to agree. I tend to agree with C.S. Lewis. Now, Christians are going to not like me to quote C.S. Lewis, but C.S. Lewis said that the idea of vicarious redemption, and I understand that not all Christians believe this, but the idea of the innocent paying a blood sacrifice for the sins of another is evil. It's heinous. C.S. Lewis said it was the fatuity from the pits of hell. What did he say? Fatuitous. I forget the exact. C.S. Lewis said it in a great way. But then at the end he said, but if God does it, then it's okay. But any human to do such a thing is you would have to be of the devil to forgive the trespasses of another. So that whole idea, at least the penal substitution view of Christianity, I agree is evil. Mercedes, good to see you here. Person I've known for many years now from Blab days. So be nice to her in the chat. Mercedes, are you still a Christian? Or have I turned you to the dark side? You don't have to answer that. Joshua White, PineCreek, best way to show a woman she's one of your favorites is to publicly forget her name. Touche. 1,000 Pine points for making me laugh there. You're welcome, TJ McKay. TJ McKay and my best friend, Bear. That's from a 1970s show. TJ with the guy who played the Bionic Man. Is anybody old enough to know what I'm talking about right now? Lee Majors was in a show. Was he the stuntman? TJ McKay. Your name reminded me of something in that show. I don't know why. I don't know if I can repeat what you said, Trevor Lynn. Joffrey asks, hey, PineCreek, do you think I'm too mean? My go-to question to theists is if they would have their disobedient children stoned to death. Do you think... No, I don't think that's too mean. They'll just talk about context and culture, and that doesn't happen anymore. But the way you could maybe soften it up a bit, Joffrey Karochi, is to put it in terms of Yahweh's about to make that commandment, that law for the Israelites. And he asks, make it the proof or drown question. He asks your opinion. The Christian is in the hypothetical. Do you think we should stone children for being disobedient? We could do that, or we could do 1 year timeout. What would be the Christian suggestion to Yahweh? TJ Hooker. Yes. No. BJ and the Bear? TJ, BJ? I don't know what I was thinking, but it's in the TJ. BJ. I think it's BJ and the Bear, Eric. I think you're right. But there was a show called TJ Hooker. I love that show. And what was the name of the show with Lee Majors, the stuntman? Because I'm the unknown stuntman. How's my cousin? He is in China, and he's, I think, a little worried. In fact, remember, if you came late, I was asked about my favorite role model, about how I became an atheist, and I would say my uncle Pete, and that's my cousin's dad, and he's in China, my uncle's in Canada, and he's not doing well. So any cross-border type stuff, you can't, funerals are terrible things right now. Even if someone did die, you can't have a big funeral. I wonder if Randall Rouser will ever eat a McFlurry. Billy D guy, ooh, you know how to push a button. Yeah, that was the one video where I was legitimately irked with another human being on my channel. And there's a huge backstory to that. But if you want to watch me not care about someone at all, watch, what's it called? It's the second video I did with Randall Rouser. It's actually very entertaining. Steve Austin was Lee Majors in The Fall Guy. Yes, that's the show I was thinking of, The Fall Guy. For anybody under the age of 40 right now, or maybe 35, you have no idea what we're talking about. BJ. I can't. I won't repeat what you said, Joshua White, but you made me laugh. 1,000 Pine Points. There were some great shows in the late 70s. Wonder Woman, Bionic Man, Bionic Woman. I remember you remember the Sasquatch scene in Bionic Man? I remember as a kid that I would have bad dreams about that. All you kids, you missed out on the 70s. And the early 80s even, you kids watching me right now, you you didn't see Michael Jackson in his prime like I did. In fact, I saw the very first moonwalk on national TV live when it happened, when Michael Jackson did it. It was, which awards show was that? Wasn't the Soul Train Awards or anything like that. What was it? Do I like video games? Yeah, but not the ones that most people like. Like I like playing hockey, seriously, on Wii U. Yeah, we're thinking alike, Gerard. I'm 65 and know everything. Well, you have a few years on me, Susan. In a lot of ways, the 70s and 80s were much more risque than today. Like, today we have cable and HBO and Showtime, and so you can get away with, a lot, full-fledged nudity. But you look at basic TV today and compare it to the 70s, I think the 70s and 80s were more risque. Am I wrong? Is your wife bitter at you at all because your children are not Christian? I could ask her. She's in another room. I think she's worried, a little bit nervous and scared, but she's still, if you're a true Christian, from their point of view, you trust in God, right? So you trust that God knows what's best for your kids and has them in their hands, that this could be just a phase. But I think my wife appreciates how I'm a father and how I encourage them to think and not just follow blindly. She likes that I teach them to question and doubt. But that comes back to bite me because they apply those principles back on me. And so oh yeah, JR. Who shot JR? Yeah. You young'uns, you missed that. Dallas. Dan the Meek, as a white former Christian married to a black Christian woman from an intense Christian family get-togethers have become uncomfortable. Have you had any similar experiences? Any tips? Well, I live 2,000 miles away from my family and my wife's family. In our first 3 years of marriage, my wife's mom died, and then a couple years after, my wife's dad died. So I never really had the in-law problem. Actually, the best advice I could ever give someone is to marry an orphan. No, I'm joking. What am I reading this month? The internet, coronavirus stuff, finance stuff. TV went in decline after the end of My Living Doll with Robert Cummings and Julian Amar in 1965. That's a little early. Remember the Bob Newhart show? That made me chuckle. This is my brother Daryl. No, I'm Daryl. This is my brother Daryl. How many people get that reference? Does your family guilt trip you about moving away? Yes, not so much anymore because we've been out of Canada for 20 some years. But yeah, my family cried when we left. We didn't know a soul when we arrived in Arizona. Didn't have a social security number. I remember the first thing we moved into, we didn't know anybody, so we had to unpack everything, and we lived on the second floor. And I remember I had to take a big dump in the toilet, and we just moved, and we didn't have a plunger. And so I clogged the toilet in the very first day of our new place, and I remember just sitting down and crying. I cried for plugging the toilet. So this is real stuff. Got the news blues? No, Susan, I don't get blue. I don't get blue. Hey, Dark Lord Dawkins. I don't get blue, I get even. Who's my favorite horseman of atheism? I'd say Hitchens. Harris second. Dawkins third. Dennett fourth. I actually think, though, who was more impactful to me, Harris or Hitchens? Who did I like more back then? Maybe my answer now is different than back then. I don't get blue, cries over clocked on it. Okay, eccentricitus. I can tell you're of higher IQ because you picked something, a discrepancy in what I did there. So 1,000 pine points to you. Saying I don't get blue over the news, but get blue over a clogged toilet. That's very perceptive. But in my defense, eccentricitus, bowel movements are way more important than the news. Am I right or am I right? Would you rather listen to something bad on the news, or would you rather be bung up internally? Do we have free will? I doubt it. Not libertarian. I don't even know what that means, actually, if you really stop and think about it. I think that there's reasons, there's cause and effect. So if you're saying something is free in the sense that nothing causes something, that means that people's thoughts are random. Which might be the case for some people. You're a rather happy atheist. Oh, thank you. Any day above ground is a good day, as long as you have chocolate and a plunger. Chocolate and a plunger. Rather listen to you than the news. You at least challenge me. That's good, Catherine. Good out of context quote. In my defense, bowel movements are way more important than the news. Who do you think have the most effective atheist channels? Great question, Devin. Let me pit all the atheists against each other, just like I pit Christians against their God. Apologia, I'm not just saying that because he's a fellow Mennonite. He's very effective with a certain branch of Christianity. Oh, what's the other pretty boy, cute boy? I don't even know their names. He's like apple pie face that every mother would want their daughter to marry type guy. Genetically modified skeptic. I think that's his name, right? He's effective. Besides me, Those are the two that pop in my head right away. I think it depends what you mean by effective. If what you mean by effective is having a place where former Christians can resonate together and kind of be bitter together and kind of get mad together, there's a whole slew of channels like that. But if you're talking about effective in the sense of actually having a solid, true Christian listen and actually go, I think those channels that I just mentioned are good. Dark Lord, if you rewind, I think I already answered that question, how I would rank apologists. In fact, I did a whole video on it, on the March Madness thing. Take a look at that. I gave my prediction that James White would win the March Madness. Ever considered discussing how a lot of athletes give thanks to God after a sporting event? I have talked about that, Billy D. Guy. I view that as a good luck charm. They're using God as a good luck charm, as a rabbit's foot. I was going to donate, but my time in Kenya keep calling me for handouts. Sorry, no problem. Sharpie, good to see you here. As a Christian, do you think God has free will? When I was a Christian? Yeah, I did think that. But if you really think about that Yahweh had the choice not to create, that kind of makes him look like a schmuck. Now, the only way around that is to say he had morally sufficient reasons to create knowing. And again, you got to assume that knowing means he actually knew what would happen and not just predict. So the whole idea of omniscience and omnipotence and free will is a knife to the idea of God being good. In other words, he shouldn't have created anything if he's self-sufficient and had the choice not to. Because if the traditional view of hell is correct, this is like, it's just a complete and absolute utter mess. This is why you have open theism. This is why you have the concepts of middle knowledge, and what's that other thing where God knows all the possible blah, blah, blah. And this is why you have so many different views of hell. It's like Christians are struggling to making all this fit. And I'm just so thankful to the God I don't believe in that I don't have to worry about any of that stuff. How many theists do you think have been responsible for deconverting? How many theists do you think you have been responsible for deconverting? I think I've played a part in many, many, many. Directly, I think it's really hard to say directly. Like even guys like Nathan Ormond, who credits me. There was a young woman named Rachel who credited me leaving Christianity. But it's complex. It's just this, there's complex reasons for getting into religion, and there's complex reasons for getting out. Quellia Soup, Theremin Trees, Non-Stamp Collector. Yeah, a lot of these guys are old school. I was thinking more current. Eric. But to be honest, I don't watch Quellia Soup anymore or Theremin Trees anymore. It's like, and I think you guys understand this. When you get to the point where you've heard so many things before, you agree with almost everything they say. You're out of that anger stage. What's left? Like, why are you guys even listening to me? It's probably because I do things a little bit differently. That I'm live streaming. A lot of these YouTubers even today, besides, let's say, Scholar Fiction, like who actually does nothing but live streams anymore? It's Scholar Fiction, myself. And well, I do those little short things. Who else does just live streams? I think Shannon Q is starting to do more of that. But no, I think those are more pre-recorded premiere type stuff. Like it takes guts to sit in front of a camera and not know what you're gonna say, what you're gonna talk about, and just talk. I usually use videos as my guide, but with the live stream chat, it's actually pretty easy. In the early days, Windows 95, I used to listen to a lot of non-stamp collector stuff. My favorite was the quiz show. That was just, for a fundamentalist, that's amazing. How long was my anger stage? About 6 months, I would say, John V. Do I like dark matter 2525? More so in the past, not so much now anymore. I do agree that his videos are a masterpiece. Like, it's very well done, high quality. I've never really been an angry person. In fact, you could probably count on one hand the amount of times I've actually yelled at someone or been that angry. I know my wife used to get angry at me for not getting angry. Not anymore. Is the Wichita office's legal department hiring? I can pole vault across the border for that. We can talk about salary later. Yeah, Jose Luis Gonzalez, send your resume to the Wichita Home Office. I do require a blood test in order to work for the PineCreek, Wichita division. What I ask is you draw blood and put it on top of the door of your house, and that some night I'll go take a look at it. Oh, yes. Eccentriestis. My favorite non-step collector video is that context. Yeah, that's great. And it's so true. It's like Christians have... they have no problem. In fact, I did that one video I have about 10 statements, and just state if you believe it or not without explanation. You see that in real time where a Christian will say, I can ask them, do you believe that Jesus is love or Jesus is the truth? Yes. Do you believe Jesus is the truth? Yes. Do you believe that Jesus healed people? Yes. Do you believe that Jesus told people to stone their rebellious children? Out of context, blah, 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 culture, blah, 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 context, blah, 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 Israelite decrees, blah, 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 new covenant. It's like, it's funny. I get angry at my boyfriend for not getting angry. Well, thank you, Skeptical. And with that, the 2-minute countdown. My channel name is a combination of eccentric and Ecclesiastes. Ah, Eccentriastes. Got it. Someone fill me in with the Wichita office. I lived in rural Missouri many years ago. The Wichita office is the PineCreek headquarters, where all the pine points are kept in a vault. And so when I give out pine points, I have people who take the pine points out, mail them out to people. If you haven't got yours, it's probably because it was lost in the mail. And the PineCreek home office in Wichita is where you come up with the top 10 lists. It's where all my jokes come from. I'm like David Letterman. I got 100 comedy writers behind me. SJ gave her usual, it's not a war crime if God commands it, answer. Yeah, Jose Luis Gonzalez, that's exactly right. Whatever God does, wills, decrees, that flows out from his nature is good by definition. I wonder who you won't have time to interview this time. You got me thinking about my ending now. How long have we been going? Joshua White, proud new owner of 2,000 Pine Points. Good night, Doug. Good night, Joshua. Poof. My apologies to Joshua White. He was scheduled to come on and talk about his 2,000 Pine Points, but we ran out of time. Stay germ-free, says Brandon.